I was wrong. There's a lot of rumors growing around the war in Ukraine in 2022. This is according to City AM. Kremlin coup rumors growing in Moscow. Disgruntled generals join FSB looking to oust Putin and end Ukraine war. Here's a tweet from last month. Vladimir Putin has Parkinson's disease, and here you can see him gripping the table so that his shaking hand is not visible. It's difficult to sort out rumors from fact. When Putin first announced his invasion and justified it, he made a claim that seemed bizarre.
Основные боестолкновения российской армии, как ожидалось, происходят не с регулярными частями вооруженных сил Украины, а с националистическими формированиями, которые, как известно, и несут прямую ответственность за геноцид на Донбассе и кровь мирных граждан.
Alright, so we have to edit what this man is actually saying. I've found two different videos of Putin's late February video announcing his reasons for the invasion of Ukraine, which he called a special military action. Putin repeatedly said that neo-Nazis in Ukraine, Nazis, are responsible for his invasion. Let's listen to him again.
И несут прямую ответственность за геноцид на Донбассе.
He didn't say nationalistic formations. He said neo-Nazi. Look at the date, February 25th, 2022. So I, like everybody else who has not been to Ukraine, I assumed this was crazy. Why is he talking about neo-Nazis? I had the same reaction as everyone else. Here's the foreign minister of Russia, Lavrov. Zelensky can promote peace between the states if he stops giving orders to his Nazi forces that border on crime, Lavrov said. Now, why is it important for us to read and hear the statements by Russian leader Vladimir Putin and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov? If we're going to go to war with Russia, we should really know what the enemy is saying. Here he says the media is talking about Russia's goals in the operation in Ukraine, which do not exist at all. Is this simply agitprop? Putin said he was invading Ukraine to stop neo-Nazis.
И несут прямую ответственность за геноцид на Донбассе.
The Jerusalem Post, April 21st, 2022. Israeli weapons seen used by neo-Nazi Ukrainian unit against Russia. The Matador is an anti-armor weapon joint produced with Israel and has recently seen use by the Azov Battalion, which is widely characterized as neo-Nazi ideologically. So, go back to the end of February. Putin's crazy, he's mad, he's citing neo-Nazis as his reason for invasion. The Israeli government has confirmed to people that don't live in the Ukraine, such as those of us in America, that these are in fact real military groups operating in Ukraine. Members of Azov Battalion attend a rally on Volunteer Day who joined the Ukrainian armed forces during a military conflict in, I guess, Donbass, in central Kiev, March 14, 2020. So, what was conventional wisdom about Putin's initial announcement on the invasion? Was that he was lying. What Putin said was factual. Now, I want to be very clear here. I am not excusing or siding with Putin. I am not excusing or siding with Russia. I believe their invasion of Ukraine is wrong and has killed many, many, many defenseless, innocent people. In fact, on one of my prior videos, I had a Russian propagandist put a comment on it saying that the forces of the Ukraine were responsible for all civilian casualties during this Ukraine war. That's obviously propaganda. But we want to sort out rumors and propaganda from different outlets. It would be nice if we had American news outlets actually reporting on the facts here. Here they can't even quote him accurately. Nationalistic formations. He didn't say nationalistic formations. He said neo-Nazis. What we assume about the war in Ukraine is highly dependent on what the American news media chooses to tell us. Back in March, Here's the statement by President Joe Biden.
And I'm not walking anything back. The fact of the matter is, I was expressing the moral outrage I felt toward the way Putin is dealing in the actions of this man. Just brutality of it. Half the children in Ukraine. I just come from being with those families. But I want to make it clear, I wasn't then, nor am I now, articulating a policy change. I was expressing the moral outrage that I feel, and I make no apologies for it.
It seems like Biden's staff had to tell him to correct his own statement, to say it did not reflect the policy of the Biden White House, or the policy of the United States government, or the policy of the United States military, or the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So Biden is making statements that are not the policy of the people who work for Biden, which would have been bizarre with any prior president, but it's a daily routine here. Sorting out what is happening in the Ukraine is kind of baffling. Tucker Carlson detailed that when Joe Biden made a $33 billion Ukraine aid request to Congress, that this is in fact double the budget for America's border protection and border patrols. So President Biden wants to send $33 billion to Ukraine to stop Russia from invading the Ukraine border, which is more than he spends on America's own border. At the same time, Tucker noted a visit by a Democrat delegation to Ukraine in support of the Ukrainian government and military resisting and fighting back with Russia. Let's listen in.
Watch.
Well, one thing is really clear, that this delegation wanted to send, but also President Biden has made very clear with his most recent aid package request. It is a historic request that we're going to push hard in the United States Congress to help pass. And it sends a very simple message. We are not interested in stalemates. We are not interested in going back to the status quo. The United States of America is in this to win. And we will...
All right, so this is a change in public statements by the American government. We're not simply providing aid to Ukraine to resist Russia's invasion. We are providing aid to defeat Russia. That's a distinct change of goal here. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said further.
He just said we're going to keep sending weapons to Ukraine, quote, until the fight is done.
We believe that we are visiting you to say thank you for your fight for freedom, that we are on a frontier of freedom, and that your fight is a fight for everyone. And so our commitment is to be there for you until the fight is done.
Until the fight is done. So this is our leadership. One of those in the delegation was Representative Adam Schiff. And you may remember Adam Schiff held the hearings back in the administration of Donald Trump, where it was established that State Department employees who had been working our Ukraine policy under the Obama-Biden administration prior to Trump objected to Trump's foreign policy with Ukraine, which was not to pressure Ukraine to join NATO. They disagreed with this, as several officials, such as Ukraine Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch and Light Colonel Vindman, testified to Adam Schiff's committees that their policy was to continue their efforts from the Obama administration to induce Ukraine to join NATO. These efforts were hampered by the election of President Donald Trump, who, while providing military and economic assistance to Ukraine, did not pressure Ukraine to join NATO. The reason is Vladimir Putin said if Ukraine joins NATO or any other Western alliance, Putin and Russia would invade, which is precisely what happened when President Joe Biden resumed the pursuit of strategic partnerships with Ukraine. Here it is right here, dated November 10, 2021. Anthony Blinken signed a strategic partnership with Ukraine's foreign minister. This affirmed a previous agreement signed between President Joe Biden and President Zelensky of Ukraine on September 1st, 2021. Putin has said every year for over a decade he would invade Ukraine if we signed such an agreement, and yet nobody at the Biden administration seems to care. Why? Let's listen on what Adam Schiff said at the time of President Trump's impeachment.
Here's Adam Schiff from 2 years ago predicting it, saying it. Watch this.
As one witness put it during our impeachment inquiry, the United States aids Ukraine and her people so that we can fight Russia over there and we don't have to fight Russia here.
All right, so I don't want to repeat anything Tucker Carlson says because I have my own view and I don't like being accused of repeating anyone's talking points. Research for yourself, figure out what's going on. If you have to be led by the nose by any news outlet to a conclusion, that's not journalism. They are supposed to present the facts and let you decide. But if you're told to make the conclusion that they want you to make, that doesn't tell you what's really going on. Now, this is 2022. It's not the 1960s. But if you go back to the Cuban Missile Crisis, Democrat President Kennedy sent a stern warning to the Soviet Union, which was today's Russia. He told them that arming the island of Cuba, 90 miles offshore from the state of Florida and the United States, was an act of war, casus belli, and that any attack launched on the United States by the communist country of Cuba would be construed as an act of war by the Soviet Union, by Russia, against the United States. Not an act of war of Cuba's dictator against the United States, but an act of war by Russia against the United States. After a tense standoff, the Soviet Union backed down. They removed the nuclear missiles from Cuba. The Soviet Union backed down because they saw, rightly, that having a Russian ally armed to the teeth 90 miles off of the coast of the United States could be viewed as an act of war by the United States of America. The problem is, it's now 2022. We are spending billions of dollars arming a war directly off the border of Russia in Ukraine in 2022. We signed such an agreement with Ukraine last year. Within months of this agreement being signed, he had his casus belli to do a military action to intervene in Ukraine, which is precisely what President Kennedy threatened to do should the Soviet Union not withdraw their nuclear weapons from Cuba. We averted World War III back in the 60s because President Kennedy had sane advisors working to keep the peace of the world. And if you look at the events leading up to the Cuban Missile Crisis, you can see several mistakes made by the young President Kennedy that induced the Soviet Union, that induced the Russians into thinking they could push him over on something like this. The Soviet Union miscalculated. They saw several signs of weakness from Kennedy that induced them to take these actions that were provocative. Now, we have a Democrat president who continually sends mixed and confused messages that have to be corrected every day, if not every week, by his own staff. The messages we're sending to Russia are, we will continue funding this war in Ukraine, and we will continue assisting the Ukrainians in killing Russians as long as Russia continues fighting. In a time of war, which we haven't declared, you're not supposed to criticize the civilian leaders in charge. Thanks to the unprecedented effort in the 2020 presidential election by the American news media, academia, Hollywood, Democrat interest groups, they now have the leadership team that they wanted to have. They got rid of Donald Trump. Donald Trump kept the peace. Now we have Joe Biden, who is not keeping the peace, and his disastrous policies in Afghanistan and Ukraine have led to war and countless civilians dead. So at this point I am repeating Tucker Carlson because both myself and Tucker Carlson don't like seeing dead Ukrainians. Our American government policy should not be total victory in war against Russia. Our policy should be to find a way to end the war and not have dead Ukrainian civilians piling up. Does this look like the best man to be leading us into World War III? And that is probably the biggest question of all. Thank you.